We're talking about how to start an LLC in Iowa, and what you can see behind me here is a checklist that we're going to work through on this process. But when we scroll up here, what we're looking at is a common list of pitfalls that happen when you get set up with your LLC. Something I like to call the LLC dumpster fire. And basically what that is you get your LLC set up, but you're not familiar with terms such as piercing the corporate veil, commingling funds, registered agents, pass-through taxation. You also don't look into how the LLC renewal process works, or business licenses and permits. So what we're going to do in this video is we're going to show you how to set up your LLC in Iowa, and making this video in 2024. But we're also going to deep dive into these topics to make sure that your LLC is set up correctly. And to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to zoom out a little bit and talk about what an LLC actually does for your business. So what an LLC does is it provides two things. It provides limited liability protection, and it also offers pass-through taxation. Now let's go through the example of owning a coffee shop without an LLC. Now what you can see here is the business owner in the center. On the left-hand side, they have their personal home, personal car, personal bank account. But on the right-hand side, they have all the business assets. That's their business bank account, point of sale, the physical location, the espresso machine, the lights. Everything is connected back to that business owner, which creates a lot of liability. Now, on the other hand, you could own an LLC that owns the coffee shop. This looks a lot different. Now we have the personal assets, the business owner is still attached to those, but on the right-hand side, we have Acme Coffee LLC, and all those assets are attached to that LLC. The important thing here is this red division in the middle that I wanted to draw attention to. That is something called the corporate veil. Now, if you recall from our list of terms here, we talked about piercing the corporate veil, and we're going to explain that through a term called commingling funds. What commingling funds is when you have a personal bank account and you're running your personal transactions through that, but business transactions as well. Very common for new business owners. They get their LLC set up and then they commingle funds by using their personal bank account for too long. You need to get that business bank account set up right away. And the reason for that is, let's say that you're being sued at the coffee shop. Somebody gets hurt, they hire an attorney. What that attorney is going to try to do is find cracks in your LLC. So if they're able to prove to a judge that you've been commingling funds, the judge may grant them permission to pierce the corporate veil. So what does that mean? That means this division disappears, and then they can come after not only your business assets, but your personal assets as well. So that's why things such as just a little phrase like commingling funds can be so important to understand, and we're going to continue to explain these things throughout this video and also this video series. Now, what I want to talk about next, though, is an explanation of pass-through taxation. And let's say that Acme Coffee LLC grossed $140,000, they had $90,000 of expenses, and netted $50,000 of income. The IRS is not taxing the LLC. They're taxing the individual, the business owner. That $50,000 in net income passes through to your personal tax return. Another way that this is said commonly is flow-through taxation. So if you hear that, it's the same thing. The reason this is advantageous for you is it's just less paperwork. It's all going to happen on your personal return. If you're hiring a CPA to do your taxes for you, well, when you have a bunch of different entities like an S corporation, that's where your cost can start to go up. So it may beg the question of why would you want to start an S corporation as opposed to an LLC? Well, in the future, you can apply an S corp designation to reduce your tax burden. Now, again, this doesn't have anything to do with setting up an LLC, but I want you to be aware of this because this could potentially save you a ton of money in the future. When you have an LLC, it is a very flexible entity. And in the future, if you're netting $40,000 to $50,000 of net income, that's when you can apply an S corp designation to your LLC, and it allows you to save on taxes. Again, this is going to be something that we're going to cover in further detail in this video series. So just stick with me because all of this is geared to help you get up and running and also optimize your business. Now, what I want to talk about now is actually starting your LLC. First step, get this checklist for yourself. There's a QR code on the screen. It is free for you to download this. This is a living, breathing document, and it's going to be very helpful for you because it's not just the checklist. It's also stuff like the glossary of terms. I'd recommend watching this LLC scam video. There's these popular mailer scams that go out after you get your LLC set up. They can cost you a few $100. But then we also have these bonuses here as well. So there's an AI chatbot here. This is really neat because you can put in things in here such as start LLC Iowa, and I got my caps lock on there. But what this is going to do is it's going to give you a detailed list of the steps you need to take in Iowa to start an LLC. Now, if you want to register an EIN, we're going to cover that in this particular video, but this will give you steps on how to register an EIN. If you don't have a name yet for your LLC, you can use this to brainstorm that name. So a lot of cool stuff here, and be sure to check out these other bonuses as well. Now, what I want to talk about is deciding which route you should go. There are really three ways to set up your LLC. You go through the state website, that's the Secretary of State of Iowa, or you go through an online LLC service, these popular legal tools that are out there, or you can go with a business attorney. Now, the business attorney is going to be by far the most expensive. The online legal tools will have more upsells than the state website, but typically are the most seamless as far as just going through the process because they're a little bit more professional and polished than the state website is what you'll find. But for the sake of this video, what we're going to do is we're going to go through the state site and look at the PDF of the Articles of Organization and explain that. But in the next video, we're going to deep dive on which path is the right fit for your needs, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later on in this video. What I need you to do is decide on a business name for your LLC. One thing I'll say is it doesn't need to be perfect. Like we had Acme Coffee LLC. That's not the brand name that people are going to see necessarily. What you can have is something called a DBA or a fictitious name, and that's a way of having a brand name. So it could be Espresso Yourself Cafe that lives inside of that LLC. So that is a different name that people will see. What's important for your LLC name is that it is a unique name that is not already taken in the state of Iowa. So what we're going to do here is we're going to search availability of the name. We're going to look at the state directory list here. This will take you to the BizBuddy website. And again, we're looking to go to Iowa here and then the business name search. So let's say that you did Hawkeyes. There are going to be a lot of businesses that are using the word Hawkeyes in certain ways in Iowa, right? That makes a lot of sense. But if I just kind of jam out on the keyboard and do that and do a search, this is the result you're looking for. Sorry, no results. Search again. When you see that, that tells us that that name is available in the state of Iowa. Now, you can use the term Hawkeyes, but like if there's already a Hawkeyes painting company, then you can't do that, right? Hawkeye Coffee, you can't take that. But if you're trying to be safe and do it properly, what I would suggest is just finding something with no results. Now, if you're looking at the state website, it's pretty awful looking, and that's going to be the experience of going through it if you do the online portal. It is one of the downsides. Just be aware of that. But one of the nice things is there's no upsells. So it may just be like expedited processing time, but they're not going to pitch you on website services or domains or anything like that. Now, what I want to talk about, though, is getting your LLC set up. So the first couple ones I want to talk about are registering your LLC versus writing your Articles of Organization. The Articles of Organization is the actual document that you create and submit to the state with a filing fee that allows you to set up your LLC. When you register your LLC name, that is different. That is simply just registering the name itself. It's kind of like getting the domain name, but you don't actually have a website yet. The registering of the LLC name is just securing the name. What you need to do is go to the state directory list here, and when you open this up, these bullet points will give you a broad overview of what's in Articles of Organization. But then we're going to go down and we're going to click on Iowa. And then we're going to zoom in a little bit here. So this is pretty self-explanatory for the most part. It's like, what's the LLC name? What's the address? Those kinds of things. But when you get to section 4, that's where I think they kind of lose people a little bit. It says the street address of the place of business of its registered agent in Iowa and the name of its registered agent that both comply with Iowa Code section 489.115. So you're wondering like, what's a registered agent? Well, a registered agent is a third-party service that handles important communication and documentation for your business. So let's say in the unfortunate case that you're sued and you get a service of process notice. That registered agent is going to make sure that you get that notice, which is essentially saying that you're being summoned to court, and they're going to make sure that you show up to court with all the documentation that you need. The registered agent has to have a physical mailing address within the state of Iowa, and it cannot be a P.O. box. And you have to have a registered agent to file your LLC, and you also have to maintain one. Now, when you go through the state website, they don't really give you options on registered agent services. That's where the online legal tools are nice because they partner with those services. And one in particular actually provides registered agent for free for the first year as well. And again, stuff we're going to talk about in the next video. Number 5 here is talking about foreign LLCs. That is going to be something that we're going to talk about in the next video as well. But then once you get through this, you just put an effective date and then you sign and date, and then you'd be able to mail this into the Secretary of State. What you'll see here is the filing fee is $100 that you're going to pay to the Secretary of State. There's no way around that fee, whether you go through a state website, online legal tools, or a business attorney. They're going to want that money. But just know that the third page here has additional clarification on different items. And of course, you can also go through the state website. But like I said, it's not always the best experience. But let's say that you assign the registered agent, you filed your Articles of Organization, and you paid the filing fee. The next thing here is creating and signing an LLC operating agreement. Why this is so important is this is a situation where an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Now, let's say that you had a business partner for that coffee shop. You end up having 15 locations, and then one day your business partner says they want out of the business. Well, if you have an LLC operating agreement that spells out who the members are, what their roles and responsibilities are, and things such as what happens if somebody wants to exit the business, you simply look at that agreed upon document, and that's how you handle it. If you don't have that in place, you may have a lot of time with attorneys and a lot of costs associated with trying to figure out what that person's percentages are of the business and what the business is even valued at. So that's why an LLC operating agreement is really key. If you go with an online legal tool, they will typically have a boilerplate one. And if you go through a business attorney, they will dial it into your specific needs. It isn't something, like I said, that you have to have right away, but it's a great idea to get set up as soon as possible. So just be aware of that. After LLC formation, I want to talk about setting up an EIN. There's an IRS link here, and it explains that this is an employer identification number. You can think of this like a social security number for your business, and it's a way for the IRS to identify your business. But what's important about this is that if you are going to put employees on payroll, you have to have an EIN. Now, you don't need it for everything, but it also can make you look more professional. So let's say you're applying for a office space or a business loan. A lot of times they'll ask for your social security number, your EIN. You want to be able to put your EIN on there because it makes you look like you're a little bit more buttoned up and dialed in as a business, all right? So this is free to do on this link right here. Again, if you go through online legal tools, they can do this for you for an additional fee, but just wanted to let you know there are different paths of getting that EIN. Next, obtaining necessary business licenses and permits for your LLC. There's a helpful SBA resource in here where you can actually do a little drop down and go down to Iowa. But what I want to do is explain this through the analogy of owning a brewery. So if you're starting a brewery, you're going to be brewing beer, distributing beer, and potentially serving beer on premise. All three of those things could potentially have different licenses and permits that are necessary for each of those functions. Now, those licenses and permits can happen on the federal level, the state level, and the local level. The mistake I see is a lot of times people get their LLC set up and they think they're done. But if you're going to be a chiropractor, a dentist, a construction company, there's different business categories that are required to have these licenses and permits. What I'd recommend if you're thinking that you're not sure for your situation, you can certainly Google, but if you pick up the phone and call your local town or city clerk office, you can just say, hey, I'm setting up this type of business. I'm wondering, what should I know as far as licenses and permits that are required? They might also be able to help you out with things on the county level and then the state level as well. When you go through the online LLC services, they actually have a package typically where they do this research for you and help you get set up with these things. But I just want to make you aware that there are additional steps after LLC formation. Now, at this point, it's a lot of information, but the key here is just to be able to pick these things off one by one and go through the process of doing everything that you need to do as a new business owner. Now, what we're going to be talking about in the next video is we're going to talk about the 3 different options for getting set up with your LLC. And specifically, a lot of times I'll see mistakes people make where they overpay by almost $1,500 getting their LLC set up because they're not familiar with all the little fees that some services tack on. So what we're going to do is we've created a LLC cost calculator that we're going to go into on this embedded calculator down here. I'm not showing it to you right now. I want you to take a look at it. But it's going to show you down to the dollar what your LLC is going to cost after 5 years of ownership. We're also going to get into these star ratings and explaining where these come from for the different options available to you. We're going to talk about why the state website can become a pain when it comes to domestic and foreign LLCs, and then also questions worth asking about which path is the right path for your needs when you're going through like business attorney or state website or legal tools. So you'll see the video on the screen right now. We're going to cover all that in the next video. And again, highly suggest that you get this checklist for yourself so that we can go through this together in the next video. All right, I'll catch you in that next video.